Hi, and welcome to this video, which provides an overview of the ISP360 profiling sonar application within the Impact Subsea seaView software. Shown on screen here is an example of what you'll see when you first run seaView. On the left-hand side, you have a list of applications which are installed in seaView. In the middle of the screen, you have any devices, any Impact Subsea sensors which have been detected. And on the right-hand side of the screen, we have a list of any communication ports and network ports which your computer has. Now, when seaView first runs, it'll automatically scan all communication ports at every known baud rate and your network as well for any Impact Subsea sensors. So this has happened, and we've got two Impact Subsea ISP360 profilers have been detected. Shown here are the two tiles for them. So tiles give you some information about the sensor connected. It'll tell you the serial number, the firmware version on it. It'll also tell you how it's been connected. And both of these profilers are connected over our network, so we can see the IP address which both profiler has. Now, to start using the profiler, you simply double-click on the profiler, and in this example, we'll use number 11 here. And double-clicking on the profiler will take you straight into the ISP360 profiling application, and the profiler will automatically start to scan and generate points on screen. Now, in this example here, we've deployed the profiler into the Impact Subsea test tank, which is a rectangular test tank, so we'll be getting imagery from that today. Shown on the screen just now, we can see the profiler scanning away. Right now it's doing a sector scan of approximately 90 degrees, and it's got a range of 10 meters set. In the middle of the screen, you've got your raw data. On the right-hand side of the screen, you've got any attitude data, so the pitch and roll of the sensor. At the left-hand side, you have a number of settings. And down at the bottom, you've got the most common settings that you're likely to need to change as you set up a profiler for a particular application. So if we run through the common settings initially, the first is you can select which profiler these apply to. Now, in this example here, we only actually have one profiler connected, but if you have multiple profilers connected, you can select all if you want the settings to apply to every profiler, or you can select the individual profiler if you want to set up individual settings for each one. We'll leave it set to all just now. So gain adjusts the imagery on screen. Now, right now, we don't have any imagery. We're purely showing profiler points. We'll come back to gain in a little while. Next, you have the resolution setting. So you can move this from speed to quality. If you move it towards speed, the profiler will take physically larger steps as it scans. It'll scan very quickly on a 7.2 degree step. If you move it up towards quality, the profiler will take smaller and smaller steps. So right now, we've set it to 0.225 degrees. So it's taking very fine steps, and it's generating a lot of points. Then we have the frequency toggle. So the ISP360 profiler is a wide bandwidth sonar. You can run it anywhere from 650 kilohertz up to 1.25 megahertz. When you're running at 650 kilohertz, the profiler has a 2-degree conical beam, and it'll get longer range. When you run at 1.25 megahertz, the range comes down, but the beam comes down as well, down to 1 degree. So you get a higher resolution imagery. So you can toggle between the two frequencies just by moving that slider. Next, you've got a bins and sector. This is where you can manually adjust the sector if you want a very particular sector for the profiler to scan over. You can also set the number of bins which are shown on screen. This is purely the number of samples which are shown on the imagery on the screen itself. You also have the option of use flyback. When use flyback is selected, the profiler will scan one way, and then fly back, and then scan again. So you can see that happening just now. It's scanning one way, then it pauses, the transducer flies back to the right-hand side, and it scans again. If we disable use flyback, the profiler will scan back and forth. So you can see it continues to scan and generate points in both directions. The last box here is a quick sector selection. So you can quickly tell the profiler which direction you want to profile around. By default, the profiler will start pretty much as shown on the screen here, and it's scanning about the north marker on the profiler itself. But we can adjust this, so if we wanted to do a full 360-degree scan, so get points generated all around the profiler, we can quickly adjust it to do just that. Just drop the quality down a little bit so it takes bigger steps and generates points more quickly. Now down at the very bottom of the screen, we have some more settings. The first is minimum range. So the minimum range, anything below this value, the profiler will ignore. So generally it'll be set to around 0.4, so that's the minimum range the profiler can start generating points from. But it's a means to gate your data. So if you know that the target you want to profile is, say, more than a meter away, you can increase this to 1 meter, and then it won't generate any points within 1 meter of the profiler. Likewise, you can adjust your maximum range. Right now it's set to 10 meters, but our tank is not 10 meters wide. So we can reduce the range here down to a more shorter range, let's say 3.5 meters. And that way we can get a close look at our tank. The last setting down here is energy threshold. So the energy threshold allows you to dictate how many points are on the screen. So with a threshold of 0, it'll show you every single acoustic return that it's detected. And some of that may be noise. So we're getting a little bit of noise in the tank just now. So what we can do is we can increase the energy threshold. Increasing the energy threshold will remove the weaker profiling points. And you can push that up until you're at a point where you're quite happy with the data you're getting. You're getting all correct data and there's very little noise present. If you push it up too far, you'll find it removes a lot of the data and only very strong returns will be left. So it's good to adjust that to make sure that you're happy with the data level. Once you're happy with the data level and you've got your required sector scan, at that point you can set up an output from the profiler. Either log the data to a log file locally on a computer, or you can set up an output string to go out to a survey computer for external logging and external processing. So they're the key settings that you're likely to change on a day-to-day kind of basis, just as you're working through a project. The other settings you have down the side here, the very top one is the main settings for the profiler sensor itself. If you click on that, you bring up the profiler setup. So this is the profiler we have here. So here we can tell it the depth it's at, any rotation we can add in here. So if you've mounted the profiler with a slight physical offset, either on purpose or by accident, you can put in a manual rotation here, and it'll just rotate all the imagery on the screen. This is particularly useful if you have multiple profilers and you're trying to overlap the imagery and ensure everything aligns up correctly. You can also go into the settings of the profiler from here. These setting pages are similar to the other Impact Subsea sensors. So the first is the acoustics side. So in here, you can set this to auto, and it will adjust the acoustics automatically for the range that you've set. If you disable the auto function, you can go in there and manually edit the acoustics. So you can edit the frequency it's run at, you can change it to be a chirp, you can change pulse length, pulse amplitude, etc. In general, unless you're wanting to experiment with acoustics or you've got a good understanding of acoustics, it's best to leave that just checked to auto. And that way the acoustics will be automatically adjusted for you. And if you have multiple profilers, the acoustics will be adjusted accordingly. You can also set your speed of sound here. You can select whether 16-bit or 8-bit data is used. This is not so relevant if you have an Ethernet connection, but potentially if you've got a serial connection of quite low bandwidth, you can drop the data down to 8-bit data, and that'll just speed up the scan rate of the profiler. You can mirror the sonar image. So mirror sonar image, by default, the imagery on screen assumes that the profiler has been installed that way up. If you select mirror sonar image, it tells the sonar that it's been installed upside down. So mirror sonar image is selected just now because the profiler in the tank has been installed upside down. Now the last acoustic item to cover here is we've got the IS360 mode. And if you click on there, you'll find there's mode A and mode B. So generally, if you're running just one profile at a time, leave it set to mode A. If you're running two profilers, have one profiler set to mode A and the second profiler set to mode B. And this will reduce the interference between the two profilers and allow them to run together with minimal interference. The next option you've got here is the ISQ signaling scheme. So you can adjust this to have a bias towards giving you the highest resolution of data, or you can reduce it down to give you the longest range capability. If you go for the highest resolution data, basically it sends a longer, more complex code. It allows you to get a little bit better timing accuracy, and it gives you a higher resolution of data. If you move it down towards range, the code becomes shorter and simpler, and it extends the range out of the profiler. For most applications where you're working kind of under 10 meters in range, it's best just to leave it set to the highest resolution setting. Here you can also change the connection settings, so you can change the communications mode of the profiler from RS-232 to RS-485 or RS-485 terminated, where it will add the termination resistor automatically within the profiler itself. You can also set the baud rate. So for maximum scanning speed, you want the highest baud rate, but if you're running over a very long length of twisted pair or older degraded twisted pair, you may need to reduce that baud rate in order to maintain stable communications. If you're running the profiler over a network, you can set up the IP address, subnet mask, gateway, etc. connection mode. If you're running onto a network where IP addresses are automatically given, you can click use DHCP. That will fit into the network you're connecting to. There's other profiling options here. The first is the echo mode. So when the profiler sends out a ping, you can choose whether it triggers on the first echo it sees back or the strongest echo. Now, the first echo will trigger on any echo which comes back first. So it might be the target you're looking for, but it could also be a fish or suspended sediment or anything else which is in the water between the profiler and the target. If you select strongest echo, it will send out a ping. It'll listen to every single echo which comes back across the range, and I'll pick the one with the highest amplitude, which will generally be the target you're looking for. In this window, you can also turn gating on and off. So gating will speed up the profiler by telling it that you want to scan to a particular range. So if you set the profile to, say, a 1 meter range, and you turn gating mode on, it'll scan to 1 meter directly below it. It'll maintain that same 1 meter distance across the whole sector of the scan. So if you do a 90-degree sector scan, there'll be 1 meter there, and it'll create 1 meter out to the end of the 90. It almost creates a rectangular range. In the AHRS settings, here you can tell the profile exactly how it's installed for the purposes of giving you pitch and roll data. So you can tell it it's inverted, as we've shown here. You can change it to default if you want that way, and it'll flip it around the other way. This basically just changes the reference point from which pitch and roll are read. Any offsets on the pitch and roll you can also enter in here. If you're using the turns counter, you can also set up where to count turns around. So that's all the main settings there. So if we go back to the main page here, one other thing to show you actually is the point color. You can change the color of the points shown on screen just by clicking there and selecting a different color. You can choose virtually any color that takes your fancy. We've closed down the profiler setup. The other options you've got down the side here is you've got the pause and run. You can reverse the direction of the scan by clicking there. Here, importantly, you can set up your log format and output data. So if we click on this button here, at the moment we've got no outputs, there's nothing being output from the computer. So we can click on Add Output. And this will allow us to configure an output string. Now there's several default strings in there. There's Impact Subsea Profiler string, and the exact detail of that string, that ASCII string, is detailed in the ISP360 manual. So if you have a look there, you'll see the detail of that. Now we can select whether this is saved to a log file or output on a COM port. If it's output on the COM port, you can set up the COM port and the baud rate, and then you can click Start Output, and it'll start outputting that data. You can see the data being output there as the profiler scans around. So that's raw profiling data, which you can then utilize for survey purposes. If you want to stop the output, just click stop, and I'll stop the data being output. So going back to the settings here, we've also got clear image. If you click that, it'll just wipe the image on screen and start repopulating it with new data. You've got display options. So this allows you to turn on and off various different parts of the display. So you can turn on and off the polar grid. You can turn off the scan line if you wish. Now this one here is quite interesting. This is the show image. So if you turn show image on, it will show you the raw sonar data, kind of like imaging sonar data. So you can see the raw acoustic environment which the profiler is operating in, and it can help understand why it's digitizing certain points. You can turn on and off the coordinates. If coordinates are on, you get this little coordinates detail down here just showing where the cursor is located on the screen. You can turn on and off an XY grid. The scaling will be automatic, but you can turn scaling off if you want to make the grid smaller or finer. You can adjust the point size here, so you can make the profile points smaller, this is in pixels, or you can make them larger, really just to suit the display you've got and how big or small you want the points. You can turn on and off the range display from the polar plot. You can turn the palette off on the left-hand side. You can turn smoothing on and off. Smoothing and palette, they really just refer to the image here. So they affect how the image looks. If you've got GPS feeding into the system, you can turn the GPS display on and off. What else got? You can also turn on and off the AHRS. So if you don't want the pitch and roll showing from the profile, you can turn them on and off. You can also turn on and off the individual components of that as well. If you've zoomed in to point to the display, there's a quick way to zoom back out again, which is to click there. And you can manually zoom in, manually zoom out there. You can also zoom in and out just by scrolling the mouse wheel as well, which is often the easier option. If you want to take a quick measurement on the screen, you can click the measurement tool and simply drag it across the screen like that. And you can take a quick measurement, so you can check the measurements as they are on the screen, rather than trying to just manually judge it. If you're doing a pipe profiling application, you can turn on and off a pipe on screen, which will allow you to kind of place an overlay on the pipe which is being scanned. If you have the imagery showing on screen, you can adjust the color palette here, so you can change it to different color palettes. And you can also adjust the threshold or the contrast there and the threshold here, so adjust the imagery to suit. Of note, the imagery shown on screen doesn't affect the raw profile output. So this change here, that's purely a visual change. It won't change the data being output from the system. The data output from the system is basically all the digitized points that are shown on screen. Other than that, you've got you can do a general log file. You can start logging data here, and you can save it to a log file. So this will be saved in the Impact Subsea proprietary standard. And this type of logging is really just to save the log file for replay through seaView again later on. Of note, if you do save the log file here, and then when you go to replay the log file, you can then set up an output from that log file to through a COM port or to a survey. So there is always a means to extract the data out with seaView. You can also open logs from here. You can open previously saved logs and replay them. Any notifications that seaView receives will be shown here. So if you start logging, close logging, if a device is connected, if a device has got bad comms, maybe there's a broken cable, etc., you'll get notifications here which will guide you on what might need to be checked or inspected. You can take a screenshot at any point. So if there's something on screen that's of interest, click the screenshot button. You can give the file a name, click the tick. It will save that image to your computer. You can click this button to go full screen, so it'll just go to the full screen of your monitor. And you've got another settings button here, which is really to do with seaView itself. So here you can set up where screenshots are saved, where log files are saved, which units you want to use, whether it's the metric or imperial measurement system. Any licenses you can activate here. There's no licenses for the profiler, so this is really for FMD, echogram, and other sensors that we have. You can select the style, so you can change seaView from a dark theme to a light theme if you want. You can also adjust the font size of everything on the screen. So depending on the resolution of your monitor, you can adjust things to look exactly as you like them. And if you click on System, it'll give you the system information. So it'll tell you the exact version of seaView and a few other details there. If ever you have a technical question or a support issue, our team may ask you for this information, just so we fully understand which version of seaView you've got. And lastly, if you click on the Impact Subsea icon, it'll take you to our website. And on our website, you'll find more information about all of our sensors. In terms of the ISP360 profiler, you'll find the datasheet, the manual, 3D models of the device if you want to have them to integrate into a model of your vehicle, and more technical information as well. For further information on the ISP360, please see our website at impactsubsea.co.uk.